All images are from the Touhou Wiki. Ha ha ha! You thought this was going to be a stream day? Well, you were wrong. Today is my day to thank you all for joining us moths in our quest to carve a path for all moths. My gift to you all is this, a battle royal between all, if not most, Touhou characters. I've painstakingly set it all up by grouping it into games, literature works and other things that I could pinpoint from the Touhou Wiki. Anyways, let's get this going as little Defoe's 500 subscribers special. The Bloodbath. As the tributes stand on their podiums, the horn sounds, Iku and Nazarene fight for a bag. Iku gives up and retreats. Iku runs away from the cornucopia. Sungyoku grabs the sword. Luna grabs a backpack and retreats. Meiling runs away from the cornucopia. Kaina runs away from the cornucopia. Shinki grabs a shovel. Marisa 98 runs away with a lighter and some rope. Sanyo grabs a backpack and retreats. Rika runs away from the cornucopia. Mike runs away from the cornucopia. Kyuko finds a bag full of explosives. Doremi runs away from the cornucopia. Merlin scares Sarah away from the cornucopia. Momoyo runs away from the cornucopia. Yuki grabs a backpack and retreats. Satono stays at the cornucopia for resources. Raisen grabs a jar of fishing bait while Tenchi gets fishing gear. Renazuke takes a sickle from inside the cornucopia. Junko runs away from the cornucopia. Yogan Magan runs away from the cornucopia. Tsui grabs a shield leaning on the cornucopia. Nimino runs away from the cornucopia. Okina takes a spear from inside the cornucopia. Other Raisen runs away from the cornucopia. Reimu 98 clutches a first aid kit and runs away. Unzan finds a bag full of explosives. Komachi and Wakazaki fight for a bag. Komachi gives up and retreats. Satori runs away with a lighter and some rope. Mamazu runs away from the cornucopia. An runs away from the cornucopia. Nu finds a bow, some arrows, and a quiver. Megumu runs away from the cornucopia. Murata snatches a bottle of alcohol and a rag. Akyu grabs a jar of fishing bait while Miko gets fishing gear. Maya runs away from the cornucopia. Chimata grabs a jar of fishing bait while Kotaka gets fishing gear. Aya runs away from the cornucopia. Jochiko snatches a bottle of alcohol and a rag. Kagasa runs away from the cornucopia. Rukoda runs away from the cornucopia. Yumiko runs away from the cornucopia. Ellen runs away from the cornucopia. Yachi grabs a backpack and retreats. Mystia runs away from the cornucopia. Yutsuho and Eternity fight for a bag. Yutsuho gives up and retreats. Binbin runs away from the cornucopia. Kokoro runs away from the cornucopia. Saki runs away from the cornucopia. Reiko falls into a frozen lake and drowns. Our first contestant has fallen. Ichirin breaks Shu's nose for a basket of bread. Mayumi runs away from the cornucopia. Midori snatches a bottle of alcohol and a rag. Myra runs away from the cornucopia. Yuki runs away from the cornucopia. Louise runs away from the cornucopia. Elis grabs a shield leaning on the cornucopia. Koakuma runs away from the cornucopia. Kaguya throws a knife into Lunas's chest. Rinko finds a canteen full of water. Mima runs away from the cornucopia. Wriggle runs away with a lighter and some rope. Skabanki runs away from the cornucopia. Sweetheart runs away from the cornucopia. Hatit runs away from the cornucopia. Chirno runs away from the cornucopia. Medicine runs away from the cornucopia. Yomu runs away from the cornucopia. Narumi runs away from the cornucopia. Yashika runs away from the cornucopia. Mai finds a backpack full of camping equipment. Riko snatches a pair of sei. Toriheim runs away from the cornucopia. Uko snatches a pair of sei. Suwako takes a handful of throwing knives. Ellie runs away from the cornucopia. Parsi and Kongaura fight for a bag. Kongaura gives up and retreats. Junji stays at the cornucopia for resources. Fuda breaks Ren's nose for a basket of bread. Miyagitsu runs away from the cornucopia. Lily runs away from the cornucopia. Mizuchi runs away from the cornucopia. Seiji runs away from the cornucopia. Yuka 98 runs away from the cornucopia. Alice runs away from the cornucopia. Mowgli grabs a backpack and retreats. Yamim runs away from the cornucopia. Orange runs away from the cornucopia. Alice 98 runs away from the cornucopia. Iron runs away from the cornucopia. Ringo rips a mace out of Sunny's hands. June runs away from the cornucopia. Saki finds a canteen full of water. Shinoumaru runs away from the cornucopia. Yotsuashi runs away from the cornucopia. Misumaru stays at the cornucopia for resources. Seiga runs away from the cornucopia. Yoma runs away from the cornucopia. Star grabs a backpack, not realizing it is empty. Numiya runs away from the cornucopia. Lyrica runs away from the cornucopia. Ringu finds a bow, some arrows, and a quiver. He grabs a shield leaning on the cornucopia. Kajuru snatches a bottle of alcohol and a rag. Keisun grabs a shovel. Serial runs away from the cornucopia. Kasaji grabs a shovel. Josai stays at the cornucopia for resources. Ringilia takes a sickle from inside the cornucopia. Clown Piece runs away from the cornucopia. Byakuran runs away from the cornucopia. Ren breaks Rikiko's nose for a basket of bread. Sani runs away from the cornucopia. Kaikuri runs away from the cornucopia. Sairon runs away from the cornucopia. Shin breaks Kana's nose for a basket of bread. Chitari grabs a shield leaning on the cornucopia. Iki runs away from the cornucopia. Marisa runs away from the cornucopia. Hekisha finds a canteen full of water. Sag runs away from the cornucopia. Mamaji grabs a backpack and retreats. Kurami runs away from the cornucopia. Miller runs away with a lighter and some rope. Shizua runs away from the cornucopia. Chen breaks Genjetsu's nose for a basket of bread. Tsukasa runs away from the cornucopia. Hina rips a mace out of Uraheim's hands. Yoko runs away from the cornucopia. Kisum finds a bag full of explosives. Remy grabs a shield leaning on the cornucopia. Tokiko runs away from the cornucopia. Maribel grabs a backpack, not realizing it is empty. Letty runs away from the cornucopia. Flana runs away from the cornucopia. Sumeriko snatches a pair of sei. Takine runs away from the cornucopia. Koichi rips a mace out of Yukauri's hands. Yumumi takes a spear from inside the cornucopia. Kanako runs away from the cornucopia. Kodaheim breaks Patchouli's nose for a basket of bread. Day 1. Saki receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Kajuru questions her sanity. Medicine defeats Alice in a fight, but spares her life. Yashika constructs a shack. Mima fishes. Merlin tries to sleep through the entire day. He discovers a cave. Yamain collects fruit from a tree. Mugetsu and Yumami hunt for other tributes. Yuki tends to Suiko's wounds. Louise and Hosuke work together for the day. Kodaheim and Cerno work together for the day. Doremi receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Sutano searches for firewood. Nazreen scares Namino off. Rukiko attacks Kogasa, but she manages to escape. Sani attacks other Raisen, but Yotsuashi protects her, killing Seni, Tenshite, Sagan, Morasa, and Yogi raid Yuki 98's camp while she is hunting. Tochiko defeats Iki in a fight, but spares her life. Rokoto and Yauko split up to search for resources. Alice 98 searches for a water source. Misumaru stalks Uko. Binbin is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Kanako makes a wooden spear. Rumio constructs a shack. Mai collects fruit from a tree. Kaine explores the area. Suiko questions her sanity. Iku, Senjaku, Rimalia, and Yuko hunt for other tributes. Satori discovers a cave. Yoma searches for firewood. Raisen explores the area. Yukauri injures herself. Ellie scares Mai off. Tsukasa receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Ringo receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Lyrica searches for a water source. Flandre questions her sanity. Ika collects fruit from the tree. Koichi thinks about home. Irene is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Wriggle fishes. Letty camouflages herself in the bushes. Koakuma tries to spearfish with trident. Sanrio defeats Marisa 98 in a fight, but spares her life. Dusai receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Megumi is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Kaikuri is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Kokra sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Maribel is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Unzen receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Lily, Torian, and Sekabanki hunt for other tributes. Sumirko explores the area. Tui overhears Kaguya and Rika talking in the distance. Atsuho and Yomu work together for the day. The Chiron poisons Star's drink, but mistakes it for her own and dies. Elis receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Shinoumaru runs away from Jinjai. Fudo collects fruit from a tree. Patchouli receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Mealing receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Marco sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Mistia defeats Yunko in a fight, but spares her life. Seiga receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Serial travels to higher ground. Shizuo makes a slingshot. Rinko sprains her ankle while running away from Junko. Sara hunts for other tributes. Iki runs away from Momoji. Gisum thinks about home. Mei tends to Mare's wounds. Kotaka practices her archery. Megumi thinks about home. Eternity begs for Ermi to kill her. She refuses, keeping Eternity alive. Orange steals from Shinki while she isn't looking. Kana receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Takane receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Yaki tends to Jun's wounds. Yojin Megan goes hunting. Sunny, Nu, Shao, Ai, and Siege hunt for other tributes. Anne steals from Shin while she isn't looking. Kasazu searches for firewood. Kaisen receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Ringu severely slices Luna with a sword. Parsi diverts Okaina's attention and runs away. Hina thinks about home. Kangaura stabs Marisa with a tree branch. Ellen thinks about home. Momoyo scares Riku off. Chihiro is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Moku hunts for other tributes. Kamaki begs for Rin to kill her. She refuses, keeping Kamaki alive. Mamizu goes hunting. Tokiko chases Rinosuke. Ran receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Genjutsu constructs a shack. Mizuchi begs for Hekishi to kill her. She refuses, keeping Mizuchi alive. Chen picks flowers. Kurumi stalks Ringu 98. Yorheim, Sairon, Wakasujaheim, and Narumi hunt for other tributes. Byakuran travels to higher ground. Sakuya steals from Chimata while she isn't looking. Clown Piece is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Mike camouflages herself in the bushes. Notori goes hunting. 6 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Reiko of double-dealing character. Lunas of perfect cherry blossom. Sandy of Mountain of Faith. The Chiron of undefined fantastic object. Luna of Fairy Wars. Marisa of protagonists. Night 1. Kanako questions her sanity. Ai and Orange talk about the tributes still alive. Momoyo and Suiko tell stories about themselves to each other. Yona sets up camp for the night. Mistia cooks her food before putting her fire out. Tui attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Psychobanki climbs a tree to rest. Seiji receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Genjutsu fins Benben, Stano, and other Ryzen away from her fire. Ren questions her sanity. Mima and Kuki huddle for warmth. Seiga destroys Wriggle's supplies while she is asleep. Sairon receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Junko sets up camp for the night. Hekishi lets Ellen into her shelter. Dormi, Mai, Yatsuashi, and Renko tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Kaikuri begs for Rinosuke to kill her. He refuses, keeping Kaikuri alive. Shizuo cries herself to sleep. Iku, Rimu 98, Iku, and Okaina tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Bachelai destroys Mayumi's supplies while she is asleep. Marisa 98 sets Hotate on fire with a Molotov. Iki cries herself to sleep. Lily sets up camp for the night. Kaisen, Mai, Moku, and Lyrica tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Utsaho goes to sleep. Narumi begs for Morase to kill her. She refuses, keeping Narumi alive. Yumko stays awake all night. Nazrin is awoken by nightmares. Kajuru stabs Saki in the back with a trident. Sunny thinks about home. Tochiko, Kamaki, and Alice sleep in shifts. Tokiko and Kanga run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Youmu fends Kutaka, Ika, and Eternity away from her fire. Yogi and Suiko tell stories about themselves to each other. Yojin Megan goes to sleep. Sakuya goes to sleep. Mine Riko, Louise, and Kaguya sleep in shifts. Voile looks at the night sky. Shinno Umaru and Dan run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Kasazu and Kisum huddle for warmth. Wakusujahan fends Nitori, Chimina, and Dreamily away from her fire. Yuka poisons Koakuma's drink. She drinks it and dies. Yuka sees the fire, but stays hidden. Kogasa tends to Yasuka's wounds. Unzen questions his sanity. Tsukasa receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Byakuran begs for Yui Uko to kill her. She refuses, keeping Byakuran alive. Ringu attempts to climb a tree, but falls on Surno, killing them both. Shinki passes out from exhaustion. Letty looks at the night sky. Misumaru severely slices Jun with a sword. Sanrio defeats Yamame in a fight, but spares her life. Parsi, Mealing, and Dusai track down and kill Iron. Kurumi questions her sanity. Star stays awake all night. Hina looks at the night sky. Futo, Alice 98, and Gokoto cheerfully sing songs together. Yuka 98, Shao, Sumirko, and Ellie sleep in shifts. Urmi is awoken by nightmares. Medicine convinces Chen to snuggle with her. Mara cooks her food before putting her fire out. Yumami, Maiko, and Mugitsu cheerfully sing songs together. Yuki passes out from exhaustion. Rika fins cereal, Nu, and Rikuko away from her fire. Numiya climbs a tree to rest. Genji, Ringo, and Kodaheim sleep in shifts. Yoruheim tries to sing herself to sleep. Kana cooks her food before putting her fire out. Sagan quietly hums. Kokra sets up camp for the night. Takane tends to her wounds. Clown Peace tries to sing herself to sleep. Mike fins Ki, Mamaji, and Merlin away from her fire. Flounder climbs a tree to rest. Toyaheim sets up camp for the night. Maribel cries herself to sleep. Mizuchi sets up camp for the night. Satori loses sight of where she is. Kyauko bashes Tenshai's head against a rock several times. Mamizu tries to sing herself to sleep. Senjaku and Shin huddle for warmth. Chihiro is unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. Elis cooks her food before putting her fire out. Numino and Bryson sleep in shifts. Yaki sees a fire, but stays hidden. Megumi loses sight of where she is. Sarah convinces Rin to snuggle with her. Koichi loses sight of where she is. Day 2, Yamame receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Flounder receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Satori makes a wooden spear. Tokiko practices her archery. Binbin and Patchouli split up to search for resources. Alice 98 practices her archery. Yui Uko explores the arena. Yogi scares Chihiro off. Kokoro receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Seiga is unable to convince Mealing to not kill her. Mike goes hunting. Serial stalks other Ryzen. Hina diverts Smoku's attention and runs away. Ringo 98 injures herself. Ringo makes a slingshot. Chin, Yatsuashi, Aku, and Michael Ray deals his camp while she is hunting. Kangara picks flowers. Maribel makes a slingshot. Jaimari constructs a shack. Sumeriko attempts to climb a tree, but falls to her death. Rukiko fishes. Junko scares Star off. Yoruheim tries to spearfish with a trident. Lily receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Sara makes a wooden spear. Siron and Megumi work together for the day. Yukauri chases Kotaka. Satano searches for a water source. Iku attempts to climb a tree, but falls on Ran, killing them both. Suiko picks flowers. Rika and Kei hunt for other tributes. Seiji camouflages herself in the bushes. Shin Umaru receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Riko stalks Kamaki. Nazreen searches for a water source. Urami diverts Eternity's attention and runs away. Riggle attacks Mamazu, but she manages to escape. Kogasa, Kaguya, Fudo, and Byakuran form a suicide pact, killing themselves. Letty, Nu, Unzen, and Kanako hunt for other tributes. Wakusujiheim and Dika work together to drown Nitori. Kasazu accidentally detonates a landmine while trying to arm it. Merlin receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Hekisha discovers a river. Youmu defeats Kajuru in a fight, but spares her life. Mugitsu tries to spearfish with a trident. Rinosuke, Shinki, Medicine, Kodaheim, and Yui hunt for other tributes. Yojin Megan steals from Morasa while she isn't looking. Alice receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Sania receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Kaikuri sprains her ankle while running away from Mamaji. Mizuchi and Yumami split up to search for resources. Sukiya stalks Ellen. Tsukasa goes hunting. Psychobanki stalks Tojiko. Kurami tries to spearfish with a trident. Mima searches for a water source. He practices her archery. Dormi goes hunting. Josiah dies from hunger. Yumko scares Senjaku off. Orange diverts Rumia's attention and runs away. Sagan constructs a shack. Junjia makes a slingshot. Megumi sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Yama tries to spearfish with a trident. Kaisen receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Mai sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Ryson collects fruit from a tree. Okaina begs for Shin to kill her. She refuses, keeping Okaina alive. Momoyo begs for Louise to kill her. She refuses, keeping Momoyo alive. Narumi steals from Kana while she isn't looking. Yuka, Sunga, and Iki hunt for other tributes. Koichi travels to higher ground. Ai attempts to climb a tree, but falls to her death. Mai searches for firewood. Yashika camouflages herself in the bushes. Utsaho severely slices Shao with a sword. Parsi searches for firewood. Mai runs away from Ren. Takane begs for Merit to kill her. She refuses, keeping Takane alive. Ellie attacks Rankoto, but she manages to escape. Genjutsu searches for firewood. Misia travels to higher ground. Touhou hunts for other tributes. Shizuo receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Sunny receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Kyauko thinks about home. Yaki sprains her ankle while running away from Namuno, and discovers a river. Emilia tries to sleep through the entire day. Yuka98 receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Lyrica explores the arena. Rinko scares Marisa 98 off. Misumaru, Yuki, and Kisum hunt for other tributes. Clown Piece questions her sanity. 21 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Quotative double spoiler, Saki of Wily Beast and Weakest Creature. Koakuma of Embodiment of Scarlet Devil. Ringu of Protagonists. Sono of Embodiment of Scarlet Devil. Jun of Antinomy of Common Flowers. Irene of Imperishable Night. Tinshai of Scarlet Weather Rhapsody. Seigo of 10 Desires. Sumeriko of Urban Legend in Limbo. Iku of Scarlet Weather Rhapsody. Ran of Perfect Cherry Blossom. Kogasa of Undefined Fantastic Object. Kaguya of Imperishable Night. Fudo of 10 Desires. Byakuran of Undefined Fantastic Object. Notori of Mountain of Faith. Kasazu of Usazun, Tusai of Embodiment of Scarlet Devil, Ai of Phantasmagoria of Flower View, Sha'u of Undefined Fantastic Object. Night 2, Tokiko goes to sleep, Yoruheim dies of dysentery, Yashika sets up camp for the night, Oka and Kisum huddle for warmth, Hina cooks her food before putting her fire out, Jairi lets Rumiya into her shelter, Rikuko begs for Kaisen to kill her, she refuses, keeping Rikuko alive. Ellie lets Kana into her shelter. Mai attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Medicine loses sight of where she is. Yuka tends to her wounds. Kanako stays awake all night. Ma sees a fire, but stays hidden. Genjutsu is awoken by nightmares. Momoyo, Kajiru, Mima, Raisen, and Siren sleep in shifts. Alice 98 questions her sanity. Yaki, Maribel, Nu, and Lyrica tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Ringu 98 passes out from exhaustion. Eternity sees a fire, but stays hidden. Psychobanki receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Himami, Shizuo, and Mizuchi cheerfully sing songs together. Mayumi, Okaina, and Kotaka discuss the games and what might happen in the morning. Shinno Umaru and Takine huddle for warmth. Mistia stabs Maiko with a tree branch. Star tries to treat her infection. Mealing sets an explosive off, killing Mamazu, Parsi, and Renosuke. Sunny goes to sleep. Kamaki spears Rin in the abdomen. Sakaya, Iki, Yukari, Ringo, and Orange sleep in shifts. Kokoro, Magimu, Other Raisen, Letty, and Alice sleep in shifts. Sueko climbs a tree to rest. Merlin stabs Koichi in the back with a trident. Yotsuashi receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Emilia thinks about home. Nazrin, Moku, Junko, and Narumi tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Yuka 98 thinks about winning. Suika and Muk tell stories about themselves to each other. He defeats Kanga in a fight, but spares her life. Sag receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor, and tries to sing herself to sleep. Chin, Clown Piece, Serial, and Merit tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Torihan receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Yama, Ui Uko, and Yamame sleep in shifts. Louise receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Yojin Megan cries herself to sleep. Shinki starts a fire. Sukeza stays awake all night. Kyauko thinks about winning. Namuno, Flander, and Marisa 98 discuss the games and what might happen in the morning. Rakoto and Jimji sleep in shifts. Wakasuja Haim, Bin, and Ellen discuss the games and what might happen in the morning. Hekisha and Riko huddle for warmth. Kaikuri starts a fire. Kurumi tends to her wounds. Mamaji screams for help. Doremi tends to her wounds. Yuki, Regal, and Utsuho cheerfully sing songs together. Jaimata cries herself to sleep. Kain quietly hums. Yumko defeats Lily in a fight, but spares her life. Elis is unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. Rinka thinks about winning. Tochiko receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Shinjaku receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Urumi defeats Mine Riko in a fight, but spares her life. Mugetsu, Morasa, Patchouli, and Satori sleep in shifts. Sudano and Dika talk about the tributes still alive. Kodahan convinces Misumaru to snuggle with her. Sarah receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Unzen tries to treat his infection. Seija, Yogai, Mei, Sanyo, and Youmu sleep in shifts. Touhou receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Shin quietly hums. Day 3, Youmu searches for a water source. Yumko runs away from Yoki 98. Yashika practices her archery. Sunny goes hunting. Tochiko, Louise, Kokoro, and Kamiki track down and kill Ika. Gisum thinks about home. Star picks flowers. Marisa 98 begs for Yo's and Megan to kill her. She refuses, keeping Marisa 98 alive. Senjaku overhears Mizuchi and Shinki talking in the distance. Kaikuri overhears Lyrica and Rukuko talking in the distance. Morasa hunts for other tributes. Takane receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Chimina, Flander, Mamaji, and Kiri Unzen's camp while he is hunting. Yaki searches for firewood. Junko searches for a water source. Kana travels to higher ground. Patchouli runs away from Mother Rison. Wriggle searches for firewood. Yumimi discovers a river. Yoka discovers a cave. Suika discovers a cave. Satori explores the arena. Ringo discovers a cave. Uko tries to spearfish with trident. Ringmilia sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Iki travels to higher ground. Dormi overhears Horaheim and Orange talking in the distance. Merlin and Wakasujiheim split up to search for resources. Sakuya, Yuki, Mike, Rika, and Shin hunt for other tributes. Yamame, Rankoto, Rimu 98, and Mirabelle raid Medicine's camp while she is hunting. Letty receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Kangara decapitates Mira with a sword. Ila sprains her ankle while running away from Kanako. Hakeisha collects fruit from a tree. Momoyo searches for a water source. Binbin, Mima, Genjiai, and Misumaru raid Moku's camp while she is hunting. Yukauri discovers a cave. Yogi diverts Mistia's attention and runs away. Clown Piece, Serial, Mai, and Sekabanki hunt for other tributes. Rinko stalks Shizua. Chen practices her archery. Alice 98 receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Youmu attacks Sarah, but she manages to escape. Alice and Megumi split up to search for resources. Suiko receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Ryson diverts Mai's attention and runs away. Ellie fishes. Seiji receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Shinno Umaru receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Mayumi, Kurami, and Namino hunt for other tributes. Hino explores the arena. Lily searches for a water source. Mugetsu thinks about home. Riko diverts Genjetsu's attention and runs away. Chihari receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Ellen overhears Mealing and Durami talking in the distance. Kajuru and Kaisen split up to search for resources. Noi thinks about home. Tuli overhears Tsukasa and Nan talking in the distance. Nazreen attacks Nu, but she manages to escape. Kodaheim receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Yatsuashi stalks Sagma, Sanyo, K.I., Sairon, Stano, and Kotaka hunt for other tributes. Narumi receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Okaina practices her archery. Utsuho camouflages herself in the bushes. Yoma explores the arena. Tokiko runs away from Uki. Eternity silently snaps Dromia's neck. 10 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Yoruheim of Ubagasezu, Michael of 10 Desires, Mamizu of 10 Desires, Parsi of Subterranean Animism, Rinosik of the Ukurandu, Ren of Subterranean Animism, Koisi of Subterranean Animism, Ika Wily Beast and Weakest Creature, Mara of Story of Eastern Wonderland, Lumia of Embodiment of Scarlet Devil. Night 3, Suiko stays awake all night. Tochiko attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Other Ryzen screams for help. Seija, Rankoto, Mike, and Shimon sleep in shifts. Marisa 98 and Binbin tell stories about themselves to each other. He quietly hums. Yojin again. Chihari and Iki sleep in shifts. Kokoro receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Ellie looks at the night sky. Samio cooks her food before putting her fire out. Lyrica looks at the night sky. Morasa stays awake all night. Eternity fins Messia, Nu, and Ermi away from her fire. Hakeisha attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Genji looks at the night sky. Mai looks at the night sky. Satori destroys Yumimi's supplies while she is asleep. Clown Piece sees a fire, but stays hidden. Ringmilia sees a fire, but stays hidden. Misumaru loses sight of where she is. Kamiki thinks about home. Kana stays awake all night. Kain attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Shinno Umaru receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Medicine and Orange run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Flounder and Nazrin talk about the tributes still alive. Yatsuashi convinces Anne to snuggle with her. Doremi is unable to convince Hiroari to not kill her. Genjutsu starts a fire. Merlin tries to treat her infection. Kajuru climbs a tree to rest. Letty and Lily run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Mizuchi is awoken by nightmares. Ringo loses sight of where she is. Yuki, Louise, and Mirabelle sleep in shifts. Narumi destroys Sagm's supplies while she is asleep. Mima stays awake all night. Yaki climbs a tree to rest. She attends to her wounds. Yoko receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Serial, Mei, and Kanako discuss the games and what might happen in the morning. Ringu 98 quietly hums. Mamaji, Yama, and Yashuka get into a fight. Yama triumphantly kills them both. Tsukasa thinks about home. Rikuko cries herself to sleep. Yoko 98 and Tokiko huddle for warmth. Unzen tends to his wounds. Sairon quietly hums. Suika receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Numino and Star run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Alice looks at the night sky. Shizuo offends Okaina, Kaikuri, and Raisen away from her fire. Wakusajihan dies from hunger. Kodahan attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Youmu receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Utsuho, Sunny, and Mealing cheerfully sing songs together. Toraheim strangles Yame with a rope. Kurumi, Moku, and Alice 98 sleep in shifts. Senjaku quietly hums. Sekibeki, Mine Riko, and Sakaya cheerfully sing songs together. Megumi attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Yunko is awoken by nightmares. Shinki cries herself to sleep. Rika, Mai, and Yogi discuss the games and what might happen in the morning. Sarah defeats Tadano in a fight, but spares her life. Hina and Yui run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Yauko thinks about home. Wriggle sees a fire, but stays hidden. Oki stays awake all night. Kotaka, Momoyo, and Kongaura successfully ambush and kill Mugetsu, Junko, and Ellen. Uko and Kaisen talk about the tributes still alive. Shin thinks about home. Megumi receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Patchouli climbs a tree to rest. Gisum and Dealis hold hands. Takin and Ranko talk about the tributes still alive. Day 4, Momoyo practices her archery. Kana is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Mima kills Alice 98 with a hatchet. Shin no Umaru receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Kamaki scares Rimu 98 off. Star defeats Louise in a fight, but spares her life. Miss Umaru makes a wooden spear. Sakaya questions her sanity. Kanako practices her archery. Yukauri practices her archery. Yoko chases eternity. Orange questions her sanity. Tui, Iki, Rika, Mai, and other Raisen hunt for other tributes. Hekeisha and Kneeling work together for the day. Shizuo constructs a shack. Senjaku sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Ellie tries to sleep through the entire day. Gisum camouflages herself in the bushes. Chen questions her sanity. Seiji scares Iki off. Yuki 98 thinks about home. Nazrin receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Kajuru receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Suiko, Morasa, Kaisen, and Serial raid clown pieces camp while she is hunting. Okaina constructs a shack. Yumami camouflages herself in the bushes. Rokoto receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Kongaura hunts for other tributes. Ki, Letty, Unzen, Sunga, and Kokoro hunt for other tributes. Nu receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Medicine injures herself. Kotaka and Binbin hunt for other tributes. Sadano questions her sanity. Saria injures herself. Yozin Megan scares Mayumi off. Lily receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Merlin scares Sakabanki off. Alice constructs a shack. Toraheim sprains her ankle while running away from Chimina. Shinki runs away from Mistia. Moku fishes. Marisa 98 practices her archery. Yunko, Wriggle, Genjutsu, and Patchouli raid Rikuko's camp while she is hunting. Utsuho, Yatsuashi, Tochiko, and Satori raid Sairon's camp while she is hunting. Yuki diverts Kyauko's attention and runs away. Umi, Uko, Mei, Mizuchi, and Jinji hunt for other tributes. Kurumi chases An, Sagn, Kaikuri, Zanyo, and Ulis hunt for other tributes. He tries to sleep through the entire day. Megumi, Namino, Yama, and Tsukasa raid Mike's camp while she is hunting. Sunny makes wooden spear. Takane, Mai, Lyrica, and Ringo raid Shin's camp while she is hunting. Mine Riko accidentally steps on a landmine. Tokiko begs for Yaki to kill her. She refuses, keeping Tokiko alive. Maribel questions her sanity. Kodaheim overhears Narumi and Bryson talking in the distance. Flandre discovers a river. Hiroari runs away from Hina. Youmu runs away from Rimulaya. Rinko fishes. Yogi makes wooden spear. Tin cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Dormi of Legacy of Lunata Kingdom. Mamadi of Mountain of Faith. Yashiki of 10 Desires. Wakasujaheim of Double Dealing Character. Yamim of Subterranean Animism. Mugetsu of Lotus Land Story. Junko of Legacy of Lunata Kingdom. Ellen of Phantasmagoria of Dim Dream. Alice 98 of Mystic Square. Mine Rico of Mountain of Faith. Night 4, Shizuo lets Ringo into her shelter. Narumi passes out from exhaustion. Kana receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Kangara passes out from exhaustion. Ringu 98 and Hekaisha huddle for warmth. Sarah cooks her food before putting her fire out. Morihasa cries herself to sleep. Namuno is unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. Kyauko sees a fire, but stays hidden. Tokiko and Umsen hold hands. Binbin fins Patchouli. Marisa 98, an eternity away from her fire. Yogi attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Orange accidentally steps on a landmine. Satori is unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. Psychobanki defeats Louise in a fight, but spares her life. Sunny cooks her food before putting her fire out. Nu tries to sing herself to sleep. Yatsuashi receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Suwako and Drinko tell stories about themselves to each other. Chen attacks Takane, but Shinmou Maru protects her, killing Chen. Sanyo goes to sleep. Lily, Yumini, and Iki cheerfully sing songs together. Tochiko and Toyoheim tell stories about themselves to each other. Yuki loses sight of where she is. Nazarene defeats Musia in a fight, but spares her life. Anne questions her sanity. Star stays awake all night. Satano defeats Shinki in a fight, but spares her life. Iki convinces Mayumi to snuggle with her. Yama defeats Lyrica in a fight, but spares her life. Momoyo loses sight of where she is. Virgo lets Senjaku into her shelter. Rika tries to sing herself to sleep. Mizuchi climbs a tree to rest. Suika receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. He thinks about home. Hiroari is awoken by nightmares. Ellie defeats Yui in a fight, but spares her life. Yaki tries to treat her infection. Youmu unknowingly eats toxic berries. Kurumi, Okaina, and Kokura sleep in shifts. Hina tries to treat her infection. Tsukasa climbs a tree to rest. Sairon receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Serial attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Uka thinks about winning. Other Raisen receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Misuma Uru, Sakuya, and Yukauri cheerfully sing songs together. Yoka and Mike talk about the tributes still alive. Sagm cries herself to sleep. Kaikuri sets up camp for the night. Merlin quietly hums. Utsuho receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Yoka 98, Genjutsu, Moku, Rimalia, and my sleep in shifts. Rikako is unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. Kajuru stays awake all night. Kotaka and Mai huddle for warmth. Rokoto tends to Kaisen's wounds. Mima receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Kamaki sets up camp for the night. Yumko receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Letty, Clown Piece, and Raisen sleep in shifts. Jimji sees a fire, but stays hidden. Maribel questions her sanity. Mealing screams for help. Yoz and Megan and Durami huddle for warmth. Kanako looks at the night sky. Siege and Shimada talk about the tributes still alive. Flandre lets Alice into her shelter. Kain and Megumi huddle for warmth. Kodaheim tries to treat her infection. Mai tends to Medson's wounds. Gisum is unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. Elis defeats Jin in a fight, but spares her life. Day 5, Other Raisen receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Yoz and Megan practices her archery. Yoka 98 tends to Ki's wounds. Sara stalks Stano. Yaki begs for Megumi to kill her. She refuses, keeping Yaki alive. Eternity goes hunting. Misuma Uru makes a slingshot. Yatsuashi receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Hina constructs a shack. Kyauka searches for firewood. Mizuchi decapitates Yama with a sword. Sagm stalks Kangara. Sunny receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Kaikuri tends to Tiwi's wounds. Tochiko overhears Anne and Rimu 98 talking in the distance. Tokiko sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Jaimata receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Kaisen diverts Toyoheim's attention and runs away. Alice discovers a cave. Mima sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Utsuho overhears Ringo and Patchouli talking in the distance. Raisen constructs a shack. Mai diverts Nazran's attention and runs away. Star makes a wooden spear. Lyrica, Chiari, Kajiru, and sees to raid Kodaheim's camp while she is hunting. Kana steals from Mistia while she isn't looking. Rikia injures herself. Mai hunts for other tributes. Genjutsu hunts for other tributes. Genji and Flandre hunt for other tributes. Shinmu Umaru, Ellie, Takane, and Rikuko hunt for other tributes. Bin hunts for other tributes. Kamiki overhears Iki and Sairon talking in the distance. Kain searches for a water source. Narumi receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Elis and Yumumi split up to search for resources. Letty begs for Clown Piece to kill her. She refuses, keeping Letty alive. Aku, Mayumi, Okaina, and Yuki hunt for other tributes. Kanako sprains her ankle while running away from Rimulea. Marisa 98 tends to Merlin's wounds. Sawako sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Rokoto receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Yukaori tends to Nu's wounds. Yoko begs for Tsukasa to kill her. She refuses, keeping Yuka alive. Senjaku discovers a cave. Kotaka and Mike split up to search for resources. Yui Uko sprains her ankle while running away from Satori. Shinki searches for a water source. Rinko defeats Sanyo in a fight, but spares her life. Hakeisha receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Virgil sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Yumko steals from Sukiya while she isn't looking. Moros is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Kokoro begs for Unzen to kill her. He refuses, keeping Kokoro alive. My fishes, Shizua fishes. Yogi attempts to climb a tree, but falls to her death. Lily, Serial, Sunga, and Shin hunt for other tributes. Psychobanki travels to higher ground. Remy constructs a shack. Louise chases Moku. Namino searches for a water source. Momoyo stalks medicine. Maribel tends to Mealing's wounds. Gisum constructs a shack. Kurami constructs a shack. 5 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Orange of Lotus Land story. Chin of Perfect Cherry Blossom. Youmu of Perfect Cherry Blossom. Yuma of Sunken Fossil World. Yogi of Subterranean Animism. Night 5. Yogi is awoken by nightmares. Ryson receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Mealing, Yatsuashi, and Bin cheerfully sing songs together. Sagma attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Gisum and Yumimi sleep in shifts. Senjaku finds Alice, Yuka 98, and Renko away from her fire. Uki starts a fire. Seiji stays awake all night. Ellie, Mai, and Mima sleep in shifts. Tochiko starts a fire. Kodaheim tends to her wounds. Ringo forces Sunny to kill other Ryzen or Kurami. She decides to kill other Ryzen. Kajiru and Okaina huddle for warmth. Kotaka screams for help. Momoyo and Flandre huddle for warmth. Shinki forces Genji to kill Nazri or Atsuho. He decides to kill Atsuho. Takane, Patchouli, Toyheim, and Clown Piece sleep in shifts. Morasa quietly hums. Moku looks at the night sky. Yojin Mugen, Zanyo, Kamaki, Tsukasa, and Siren sleep in shifts. Louise, Genjutsu, Star, Mike, and Yumko sleep in shifts. Tsutano is unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. Hina and Sara sleep in shifts. Elis, Sunga, Suwako, and Ui Uko sleep in shifts. Nu convinces Kokoro to snuggle with her. Eternity tries to treat her infection. Emilia screams for help. Keisan dies from thirst. Namino, Rumi, and Shizua cheerfully sing songs together. Maribel attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Shin and Chokiko run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Yaki convinces Yuki to snuggle with her. Ringu 98 looks at the night sky. Kuki looks at the night sky. Letty and Shiori sleep in shifts, and receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Iki goes to sleep. Rikuko, Wriggle, and I sleep in shifts. Marisa 98 stays awake all night. Rankoto, Lily, Mei, and Maggie tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Mizuchi, Satori, Hakeisha, Kanga-ura, and Yuka-uri sleep in shifts. Kana sets up camp for the night. Merlin receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Psychobanki looks at the night sky. Tui questions her sanity. Narumi and Mistia huddle for warmth. Lyrica and Kyauko tell stories about themselves to each other. Unzen, Chimina, K.I., Misuma-uru, and Rika sleep in shifts. Shinuma-uru tries to sing herself to sleep. Serial, Mayumi, Medicine, and Sukiya sleep in shifts. Kanako defeats Kaikuri in a fight, but spares her life. Day 6. Yunko runs away from Yoga. Letty makes a wooden spear. Sarah fishes. Merlin discovers a cave. Louise and Maribel hunt for other tributes. Sakia attacks Youmu, but she manages to escape. Medicine begs for Clown Piece to kill her. She refuses, keeping Medicine alive. Mealing repeatedly stabs Hina to death with Sei. Emilia collects fruit from a tree. Sunak injures herself. Marisa 98 picks flowers. Mai, Tamaki, Kodaka, and Okaina raid Kaikuri's camp while she is hunting. Ui Uko receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Jaimachi searches for firewood. Kajuru kills Kuki with her own weapon. Patchouli overhears Momoyo and Rimu 98 talking in the distance. Yaki tends to Satano's wounds. Sagan, Kurami, Sunny, and Kyauko raid Mei's camp while she is hunting. Sanyo begs for Rika to kill her. She refuses, keeping Sanyo alive. Morasa attempts to climb a tree, but falls to her death. Rikuko repeatedly stabs Yuka 98 to death with Sei. Serial sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Rumi, Misuma Uru, and Star track down and kill Yuki. Hiroari constructs a shack. Toyoheim chases Kana. Kain practices her archery. Yotsuashi runs away from Sairon. Rinko hunts for other tributes. Satori makes a slingshot. Yukauri chases Flander. Tojiko fishes. Magimu, Aku, Mike, and Kodaheim raids Suiko's camp while she is hunting. Tokiko fishes. Gisum overhears Mai and Binbin talking in the distance. Wriggle travels to higher ground. Elis tends to Shinki's wounds. Iki defeats Rokoto in a fight, but spares her life. Genjutsu goes hunting, and sets an explosive off, killing Alice, and Sekibeki. Seiji camouflages herself in the bushes. Kokoro makes a slingshot. Yosen Megan diverts Ringo's attention and runs away. Eternity injures herself. Mizuchi and Moku hunt for other tributes. Namino receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Kagaura searches for a water source. Hekeisha tends to Unzen's wounds. Narumi diverts Tsukaza's attention and runs away. Shin runs away from Nazarena. Sentyaku makes a slingshot. Takane stalks Mima. Lyrica steals from Genji while he isn't looking. Nu receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Shizua, Mistia, and Shinmua Uru hunt for other tributes. Kanako fishes. Tui camouflages herself in the bushes. Lily receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Mayumi falls into a pit and dies. Raisen sprains her ankle while running away from Ellie. 11 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Other Raisen of the Udbaget Suzu, Atsanho of subterranean animism. Kaisen of urban legend in limbo. Hina of mountain of faith. Kuki of wily beast and weakest creature. Morat of undefined fantastic object. Yuka 98 of Lotus Land story. Yuki of mystic square. Alice of perfect cherry blossom. Psychobanki of double dealing character. Mayumi of wily beast and weakest creature. Night 6. Jirami looks at the night sky. Yuka tends to Mai's wounds. Siron lets Yuji and Megan into their shelter. Maribel, Sagm, and Binbin discuss the games and what might happen in the morning. Star, Lyrica, Shizua, Tochiko, and Kajuru sleep in shifts. Shinki loses sight of where she is. Kamaki is unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. Mizuchi receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Sakia defeats Hiki in a fight, but spares her life. Wriggle, Ringo, Marisa 98, and Tsukaza tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Raisen receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Mistia goes to sleep. Namino kills Kyauko while she is sleeping. Genji, Yumko, and Moku discuss the games and what might happen in the morning. Kana looks at the night sky. Okaina is awoken by nightmares. Urumi defeats Kotaka in a fight, but spares her life. Clown Piece cries herself to sleep. Serial, Flander, Kodaheim, Mealing, and Oki sleep in shifts. Ui Uko receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Ringu 98 passes out from exhaustion. Tokiko cries herself to sleep. Mai, Sunaka, and Elis discuss the games and what might happen in the morning. Ellie sees a fire, but stays hidden. Takane and Tui talk about the tributes still alive. Maintains Satori's food, killing her. Nazarene starts a fire. Eternity cooks her food before putting her fire out. Rinko receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Yaki cries herself to sleep. Hekeisha stays awake all night. Sunny receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Medicine, Satano, Kanako, and Megumi sleep in shifts. Kain sets an explosive off, killing Kisum. Mima receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Shinno Uru tries to treat her infection. Yumumi screams for help, Sanyo and Remilia tell stories about themselves to each other. Sarah attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Riko receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Letty stays awake all night. Rokoto receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Genjutsu tries to sing herself to sleep. Rikuko begs for Yotsuyashi to kill her. She refuses, keeping Rikuko alive. Unzen and Ann tell stories about themselves to each other. Jaimari decapitates Naomi with the sword. Misumaru tries to treat her infection. Shinjaku receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Toyohan quietly hums. Suiko, Kaikuri, Kurami, and Shin sleep in shifts. Kokoro sees a fire, but stays hidden. Yuka, Momoyo, Mike, and Lily tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Nu is unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. Louise, Kangaura, Merlin, and Patchouli tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Seiji starts a fire. Day 7. Misumaru begs for Kangaura to kill her. She refuses, keeping Misumaru alive. Ringu 98 begs for Mu to kill her. She refuses, keeping Ringu 98 alive. Raisen camouflages herself in the bushes. Shinoumaru diverts Yoki's attention and runs away. Shizuo receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Sunny discovers a cave. Flana receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Urumi receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Eternity picks flowers. Moku tries to sleep through the entire day. Kokoro searches for a water source. Yojin Megan sprains her ankle while running away from Kurami. Mishia and Kana split up to search for resources. Tuli attacks Chitari, but she manages to escape. Lily discovers a cave. Mima runs away from Kotaka. Yui Uko receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Okina defeats Yunko in a fight that spares her life. Nu constructs a shack. Ann and Sanyo fight Suka and Letty. Ann and Sanyo survive. Sakuya, Ringo, Remilia, and Kajuru raid Sarah's camp while she is hunting. Ringo runs away from Chimina. Yaki tries to spearfish with Trident. Seiji and Mai work together for the day. Mike picks flowers. Kodaheim sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Genji receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Shin discovers a river. Megumi practices her archery. Himami, Aku, Tokiko, and Mealing hunt for other tributes. Elis camouflages herself in the bushes. Senjaku searches for a water source. Merlin makes wooden spare. Yotsuyashi picks flowers. Marisa 98, Clown Piece, Mizuchi, and Kain hunt for other tributes. Takane explores the area. Patchouli steals from Mai while she isn't looking. Momoyo discovers a river. Lyrica receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Maribel practices her archery. Star steals from Sutano while she isn't looking. Louise, Genjutsu, Kaikuri, and Serial raid Binbin's camp while she is hunting. Unjin picks flowers. Tochiko defeats Kanako in a fight that spares her life. Siron overhears Medicine and Toyoheim talking in the distance. Tsukioza thinks about home. Yukari camouflages herself in the bushes. Shinki receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Kamiki receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Rokoto is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Suiko diverts Siki's attention and runs away. Namino searches for a water source. Rikuko picks flowers. Ellie runs away from Wriggle. Hekisha scares Nazarnoff. Rika travels to higher ground. Sagma explores the area. 6 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Kyauko of 10 Desires. Satori of Subterranean Animism. Gisuma of Subterranean Animism. Narumi of Hidden Star and 4 Seasons. Suzuki of Immaterial and Missing Power. Letty of Perfect Cherry Blossom. We will now proceed to a small intermission. Let's check on our contestants. Both protagonists have been eliminated with Rima getting 1 kill. All of highly responsive to prayers are alive with 1 kill by Mima and a whopping 5 kills by Kangaura. Well done Kangaura! Story of Eastern Wonderland has lost 1 person, but they have acquired 1 kill by Genji. Good Turtle! Phantasmagoria of Dim Dream has lost Helen. 1 killer has been acquired by Rikuko Asakura. 3 people remain in Lotus Land's story. 2 have fallen within Mystic Square. Louise takes the lead with 1 kill. 4 have fallen within Embodiment of Scarlet Devil with Dusai acquiring 1 kill. However, Hong Mealing strikes 4th with 6 kills. Now Babe Gatekeeper. 6 have fallen within Perfect Cherry Blossom. We also have Merlin Prism River with 1 kill and Yuka Ariyakuma with 2 kills. Not bad, but it could be better. The material and missing power is gone. Oh well. Imperishable Night has 2 people lost. Funny enough, it is both Moon Immortals. Kaguya having 1 kill, Misia and Kain also have 1 kill, Phantasmagoria Flower View has 1 deceased, Kamakiano Zuka is at possession of 2 kills, not bad for a slacker, only 3 remain in Mountain of Faith, none have acquired a single kill, how disappointing. Scarlet Weather Rhapsody is lost, Subterranean Animism is lost with 1 kill by Parsi Mizuashi and Utsuho Rei-uji, OF, 3 remain in Undefined Fantastic Object, Double Spoiler is lost, 2 remain in Fairy Wars with both Star Sapphire and Sunny Milk acquiring 1 kill each, only 1 remains in 10 Desires with the deceased Kyauko Kusadani acquiring 1 kill and Sogano Dojiko getting a kill, Stay Strong Dojiko, Hopeless Masquerade remains with Koku gaining 1 kill, 3 are lost in Double Dealing Character with the deceased Wakusajahan getting 1 kill, Kajuru has 2, Urban Legend in Limbo is lost, Legacy of Lunata Kingdom has lost 2 people, Antimony of Common Flowers has lost Junior Origami, only 1 has been lost in Hidden Star in 4 seasons, Eternity Larva and Immunosakata have 1 kill each, and Commando on the other hand has 4 kills, well done! Wily Beast and Weakest Creature has lost 4 people with Ika Ebisa taking down 1 kill, Urumi Yoshizaki also has 1 kill, Kotaka Niwadari has a well done 3 kills, not bad for a chicken, Sunken Fossil World has fallen with Yamato Hetsu gaining 2 kills, not bad at all, Unconnected Marketeers is still kicking with 1 kill by Chimera Tenkyu and Takani Mamashiro, 2 kills by Sanyo Kamikaze and Misuma Urudama Sakura and 3 kills by Momoyo Haimoshi. So far Unconnected Marketeers is the most impressive. Ghostly Field Club remains strong, Kurindu has lost Kurin, well, Kumanshiki remains alive, Bagatsuzu has lost 2 people with Ryzen gaining 1 kill as well as Watatsuki no Toraheim, stay strong, Suzunan has fallen, Shirakaden remains standing with 1 kill by Mizuchi Madeguchi, Sumakuka remains strong with Mayaku Noda having 1 kill, and finally, the PC98 protagonists remain with Marisa Kirai's AIM98 having 1 kill. With that, we return to our battle, let's continue. Night 7, Mima starts a fire, Kaikuri, Rimalia, and Eternity discuss the games and what might happen in the morning. Tojiko and Matsuashi hold hands, Merlin and Sakuya huddle for warmth, Namino, Might, Lyrica, and Lily sleep in shifts. Yumumi starts a fire, Shinki convinces Mistia to snuggle with her, Rikuko receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor, Hekasha tends to Genji's wounds, Sukaza cries herself to sleep, Jin tries to treat her infection, Flandre lets Urumi into her shelter, Kana looks at the night sky, Satana and Yojin Megan run into each other and decide to truce for the night, Kangaura starts a fire, Yaki cries herself to sleep, Iki starts a fire, Kamaki goes to sleep, Kodaheim and Dan run into each other and decide to truce for the night, Tui goes to sleep, Ki, Kotaka, and Rimu98 cheerfully sing songs together, Sentyaku climbs a tree to rest, Star cooks her food before putting her fire out, Chitari begs for Wriggle to kill her, she refuses, keeping Chitari alive, Ui Uko's strap kills Kajuru, Clown Piece, Sagm, and Sairon cheerfully sing songs together, Nu defeats Louise in a fight, but spares her life. Aki receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor, Toraheim and Genjetsu huddle for warmth, Sariel screams for help, Sanyo tends to Nazarin's wounds, Yuka passes out from exhaustion, Yumko receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor, Rika and Suiko huddle for warmth, Shizua screams for help, Mai looks at the night sky, Yuka sets up camp for the night, Mai is awoken by nightmares, Ellie looks at the night sky, Kurumi and Maribel sleep in shifts, Mizuchi loses sight of where she is, Shinno Umaru starts a fire, Kokoro loses sight of where she is, Megumi sets an explosive off, killing Patchouli, Unjin receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor, Sarah, Rankoto, Seija, and Elis tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood, Sunny sees a fire, but stays hidden, Marisa 98 tends to Ringo's wounds, Medicine and Bin huddle for warmth, Noi defeats Okai in a fight, but spares her life. Ryzen looks at the night sky, Moku and Tokiko huddle for warmth, Misuma screams for help, Rinko passes out from exhaustion, Momoyo fends Kanako, Chimina, and Takane away from her fire, Mealing looks at the night sky. Day 8, Siron sprains her ankle while running away from Dojiko, Yumumi stalks Sukiya, Kaikuri tends to attack Ainge's wounds. Yumko searches for a water source. Iki camouflages herself in the bushes. Aki sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Mike receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Ryzen sprains her ankle while running away from Anne. Chihari camouflages herself in the bushes. Shinki searches for firewood. Shinoumaru stalks Yoka. I hunts for other tributes. Mistia, Star, Misumaru, and Yojin Megan raid News Camp while she is hunting. Louise and Eternity hunt for other tributes. Marisa 98 and Rika work together for the day. Sueko camouflages herself in the bushes. Kokoro begs for Kotaka to kill her. She refuses, keeping Kokoro alive. Sunny diverts Kangara's attention and runs away. Shizuo makes a slingshot, and fishes. Kneeling over hears Kodaheim and Wriggle talking in the distance. Yukari reconstructs a shack. Sag receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Mima discovers a river. Ellie receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Flandre and Yui hunt for other tributes. Nomino kills Elis for her supplies. Yaki scares Medicine off. Okaina receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Shin receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Genjetsu scares Merlin off. Sudano fishes. Ringo, Binbin, and Lily hunt for other tributes. Ringu 98 is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Kurumi picks flowers. Clown Piece explores the arena. Seiji runs away from cereal. Kana and Mai hunt for other tributes. Tsukyoze constructs a shack. Moku hunts for other tributes. Momoyo receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Sarah discovers a cave. Ringo, Yatsuashi, Mei, and Yui Uko hunt for other tributes. Urumi attacks Kanako, but Kamaki protects her, killing Urumi. Hakisha is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Mizuchi camouflages herself in the bushes. Junji tries to spear fish with a trident. Tokiko injures herself. Megumi makes a slingshot. Lyrica, Zanyo, Chimina, Rokugo, and Dreamilia hunt for other tributes. Senjaku begs for Nazarene to kill her. She refuses, keeping Senjaku alive. Rokoto constructs a shack. Kain tries to sleep through the entire day. Maribel begs for Toyoheim to kill her. She refuses, keeping Maribel alive. 4 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Kajuru of double-dealing character. Patchouli of embodiment of Scarlet Devil. Elis of highly responsive to prayers. Urumi of wily beast and weakest creature. Night 8. Yatsuashi receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Chihari sets up camp for the night. Tokiko receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Rinko sets an explosive off, killing Yaki, Yuka, and Kodaheim. Yui Uko defeats Shinoumaru in a fight, but spares her life. Shinki thinks about home. Sunny fins Rukugo, Kangara, and Genji away from her fire. Wriggle goes to sleep. Aki receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Kana is unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. Louise, Mistia, Okaina, and Binbin sleep in shifts. Rokoto receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Megumi stabs Clown Piece with a tree branch. Shin thinks about home. Risen goes to sleep. Chimina, Taki, Tui, Seija, and Senjaku sleep in shifts. Sueko is unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. Kotaka, Kamaki, Mima, and Dreamilia tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Ki, Nu, and Sag cheerfully sing songs together. Ringu 98 and Kurumi tell stories about themselves to each other. Riko receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Mike cries herself to sleep. Mike quietly hums. Yojin Megan receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Kokra stabs Ellie in the back with a trident. Tochiko and Misumaru sleep in shifts. Iki quietly hums. Star loses sight of where she is. Lyrica destroys medicine supplies while she is asleep. Moku receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Nomino and Eternity hold hands. Hakisha passes out from exhaustion. Anne, Mike, and Nazarene sleep in shifts. Shizuo, Sakuya, Tsukazu, Genjetsu, and Yumiko track down and kill Yumini. Sudano convinces Serial to snuggle with her. Merlin defeats Mealing in a fight, but spares her life. Sanyo convinces Yukari to snuggle with her. Voile looks at the night sky. Unsen defeats Mirabelle in a fight, but spares her life. Flandre and Lily hold hands. Kaikuri sets an explosive off, killing Siron, Momoyo, and Sarah. Mizuchi and Kanako hold hands. Ringo strangles Marisa 98 after engaging in a fist fight. Toyoheim tries to treat her infection. Day 9. Tokiko steals from Tsukazu while she isn't looking. Yumko practices her archery. Suiko stalks Iki. Nazreen receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Misumaru camouflages herself in the bushes. Merlin receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Mima, Sagm, Okaina, and Ryzen raid Kokoro's camp while she is hunting. Mistia tries to spearfish with trident. Kurumi receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Siege and Ringo hunt for other tributes. Sunny discovers a cave. Jinji injures himself. Shinno Umaru, Sakuya, Ringo, and Kaikuri raid Rimu 98's camp while she is hunting. Kanako questions her sanity. Medicine, Moku, Magyumu, Unzen, and Eternity hunt for other tributes. Shinki searches for a water source. Kotaka goes hunting. Jin tries to spearfish with a trident. Shizuo and Riko hunt for other tributes. Namino explores the area. Star and Chiwi split up to search for resources. Takine collects fruit from a tree. Mai steals from Rakoto while she isn't looking. Jaiari and Torahan track down and kill Mike. Lyrica searches for firewood. Rimalia, Mizuchi, Chimina, and New hunt for other tributes. Kain searches for a water source. Sanyo and Hakeisha hunt for other tributes. Mai attacks Flander, but she manages to escape. Serio chases Ui Uko. Yotsuashi defeats Senjaku in a fight, that spares her life. Mai picks flowers. Lily defeats Anne in a fight, that spares her life. Louise tends to Ken's wounds. Kongaura and Dojiko hunt for other tributes. Maribel pushes Kamaki off a cliff during a knife fight. Genjutsu steals from Binbin while she isn't looking. Yukari injures herself. Sadano makes a slingshot. Rikuko, Iki, and Mealing hunt for other tributes. Wriggle collects fruit from a tree. Yozin Megan receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. 12 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Yaki of Wily Beast and Weakest Creature. Yoko Phantasmagoria of Flower View. Kodaheim of Phantasmagoria of Dim Dream. Clown Piece of Legacy of Lunata Kingdom. Ellie of Lotus Land Story. Humani of Phantasmagoria of Dim Dream. Siron of Legacy of Lunata Kingdom. Momoyo of Unconnected Marketeers. Sara of Mystic Square. Marisa 98 of Protagonist PC 98. Mark of Unconnected Marketeers. Kamaki of Phantasmagoria of Flower View. Night Night, Mei, Kotaka, and Kokra sleep in shifts. Torahan and Lyrica tell stories about themselves to each other. Tochiko receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Iki cries herself to sleep. Hakeisha strangles Rimu 98 after engaging in a fist fight. Nu and Remilia run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Kurumi thinks about home. Kaikuri receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor, and tends to her wounds. Moku, Eternity, Misumaru, and Ryzen tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Siege receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Takine and Serial run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Flandra stays awake all night. Maribel cries herself to sleep. Kain convinces Namino to snuggle with her. Ui Uko convinces Senjaku to snuggle with her. Wriggle attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Rinko stays awake all night. Mistia and Genjutsu run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Mealing receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Mai tends to her wounds. Aki forces Ringo to kill Yukari or Rukiko. She decides to kill Yukari. Satano goes to sleep. Shin destroys Riko's supplies while she is asleep. Binbin stays awake all night. Yotsuashi destroys Chitari's supplies while she is asleep. Yojin Megan tries to sing herself to sleep. Okaina receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Jinji cooks his food before putting his fire out. Kanako severely injures Suiko, but puts her out of her misery. Tui questions her sanity. Medicine questions her sanity. Yumko sets an explosive off, killing Tsukazu and Tokiko. Sanyo looks at the night sky. Shinki passes out from exhaustion. Rakoto and Merlin run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Louise tends to Kongaura's wounds. Star cries herself to sleep. Lily and Unz run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Magyumu looks at the night sky. Shinno Umaru, Sagm, and Shizuo sleep in shifts. Mima attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Mai passes out from exhaustion. Sunny screams for help. Sakuya severely slices Mizuchi with a sword. Nazreen thinks about home. Jaimata convinces Kana to snuggle with her. Day 10, Sanyo hunts for other tributes. Riko questions her sanity. Kokoro overhears Hakeisha and Okaina talking in the distance. Rikuko overhears Horahan and Remilia talking in the distance. Satano runs away from Anne. Kurumi begs for Ryzen to kill her. She refuses, keeping Kurumi alive. Namino receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Sunny tries to sleep through the entire day. Mistia thinks about home. Nazrin fishes. Yumko defeats Lyrica in a fight, but spares her life. Moku diverts Mealing's attention and runs away. Tui constructs a shack. Genjutsu injures herself. Aki receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Wriggle receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Iki, Seija, Yojin Mugen, and Ui Uko hunt for other tributes. Misumaru discovers a river. Bin searches for a water source. Unzen is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Kan attains Yatsuashi's food, killing her. Sakuya, Mai, and Maribel hunt for other tributes. Jaimari diverts Shizua's attention and runs away. Rokoto discovers a cave. Shin no Umaru receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Shin, Genji, and Moi successfully ambush and kill Shinki, Tochiko, and Shiori. Nu, Kangaura, and Mima hunt for other tributes. Ki and Eternity split up to search for resources. Serial diverts Louise's attention and runs away. Kanako, Lily, Megumi, and Flandre hunt for other tributes. Mai chases Takane. Kaikure stalks Merlin. Rinko and Medicine work together for the day. Star chases Kotaka. Ringo constructs a shack. Senjaku silently snaps Sagum's neck. 11 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Ringu 98 of Protagonist PC 98. Yukauri of Perfect Cherry Blossom. Suiko of Mountain of Faith. Sukaza of Unconnected Marketeers. Tokiko of Kuradu. Mizuchi of Chiragan. Yatsuashi of Double Dealing Character. Shinki of Mystic Square. Tochiko of 10 Desires. Chiari of Phantasmagoria of Dim Dream. Sagma of Legacy of Lunata Kingdom. Night 10. Flandre cries herself to sleep. Toraheim looks at the night sky. Nazrin quietly hums. Medicine starts a fire. Senjaku sets up camp for the night. Aki thinks about winning. Rikuko receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Sanya receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Kangaura attends to her wounds, and is awoken by nightmares. Shin cooks her food before putting her fire out. Ki, Louise, and Lyrica sleep in shifts. Kurumi kills Seijin for her supplies. Kana and Rika run into each other and decide to truce for the night. Sakuya and Iki talk about the tributes still alive. Mai tends to her wounds. Kotaka throws a knife into Ringo's head. Maribel screams for help. Wriggle sees a fire, but stays hidden. Mima begs for Star to kill her. She refuses, keeping Mima alive. Mai screams for help. Moku and Ui Uko talk about the tributes still alive. Misumaru tends to Kokoro's wounds. Eternity, Yojin Mugen, Mealing, and Sunny tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Kanako starts a fire. Genjutsu receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Mai begs for Namino to kill her. She refuses, keeping Mai alive. Genji tries to treat his infection. Merlin stays awake all night. Nu taints Kaikuri's food, killing her. Serial, Chimina, and Shizua cheerfully sing songs together. Rokoto tries to sing herself to sleep. Lily, Ringo, and Megumi discuss the games and what might happen in the morning. Okaina attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Unzen loses sight of where he is. Yumko thinks about home. Hakeisha goes to sleep. Emilia questions her sanity. Sadano, Takane, and Mistia discuss the games and what might happen in the morning. Shin no Umaru sees a fire, but stays hidden. Bin sets up camp for the night. Tui bashes Ryzen's head against a rock several times. Scary. Day 11. Sunny, Genji, and Medicine hunt for other tributes. Merlin questions her sanity. Shin and Kurumi hunt for other tributes. Mai, Eternity, and Kangaura get into a fight. Eternity triumphantly kills them both. Mealing camouflages herself in the bushes. Mima receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Toraheim constructs a shack. Rokoto and Rika hunt for other tributes. Megumi makes a slingshot. Mai questions her sanity. Ui Uko tends to Rikiko's wounds. Serial, Lily, Senjaku, and Nazreen hunt for other tributes. Louise fishes. Kana diverts Rinko's attention and runs away. Oki steals from Kain while she isn't looking. Unzen sprains his ankle while running away from Chimina. Iki searches for a water source. Namino tries to sleep through the entire day. Nu steals from Maribel while she isn't looking. Sadano collects fruit from a tree. Tui sets an explosive off, killing Gimko, Moku, Misumaru and Sanyo. Sakuya sprains her ankle while running away from Genjutsu. Mistia receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor, and dies trying to escape the area. Okaina goes hunting. Kokoro receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Wriggle practices her archery. Lyrica thinks about home. Emilia runs away from Hekisha. Takane thinks about home. Kotaka runs away from Star. Shinno receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Miller receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Binbin injures herself. Shizuka kills Kanako for her supplies. Yojin Megan sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Flounder camouflages herself in the bushes. 12 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Siege of double-dealing character. Ringo of Legacy of Lunata Kingdom. Kaikuri of Highly Responsive to Prayers. Ryzen of Imperishable Night. Mai of Mystic Square. Kanga of Highly Responsive to Prayers. Yunko of Mystic Square. Moku of Imperishable Night. Misuma of Unconnected Marketeers. Sanyo of Unconnected Marketeers, and of Hidden Star in 4 Seasons. Kanako of Mountain of Faith. Night 11, Serial climbs a tree to rest. Medicine, Louise, and Wriggle sleep in shifts. Shinno and Diki sleep in shifts. Binbin passes out from exhaustion. Shin and Merlin tell stories about themselves to each other. Mystia forces Genjutsu to kill Lyrica or Chimina. She refuses to kill, so Mystia kills her instead. Takane thinks about home. Shizuka tends to her wounds. Megumi receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Senjaku, Maribel, and Yui successfully ambush and kill Rikuko, Unzen, and Nu. Rinko loses sight of where she is. Mai convinces Okaina to snuggle with her. Kotaka thinks about winning. Kain stays awake all night. Kurumi, Aku, and Torihime discuss the games and what might happen in the morning. Namino, Mealing, Sunny, Rankoto, and Genji sleep in shifts. Lily tends to Satano's wounds. Sakuya cries herself to sleep. Star and Uko hold hands. Emilia thinks about home. Yojin Megan receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Hekisha falls into a pit and dies. Nazreen and Kokoro huddle for warmth. Voile lets Rika into her shelter. Flounder dies of dysentery. Kana receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Mima strangles Eternity with a rope. Day 12, Torihime diverts Kokoro's attention and runs away. Mealing questions her sanity. Takane tries to spearfish with trident. Jaimata camouflages herself in the bushes. Rankoto overhears Genji and Nazrin talking in the distance. Rika questions her sanity. Louise receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Megumi makes a wooden spear. Lily's trap kills Emilia. Star steals from medicine while she isn't looking. Aki receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Uko kills Shinno with a hatchet. Merlin fishes. Shin steals from Mima while she isn't looking. Wriggle dies from thirst. Satano tries to sleep through the entire day. Kotaka, Mystia, Lyrica, Ringo, and Sunny hunt for other tributes. Shizuka receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Yojin Megan chases Binbin. Maribel collects fruit from a tree. Okaina constructs a shack. Iki goes hunting. Kurumi makes a wooden spear. Namino scares Ken off. Senjaku goes hunting. Mai steals from Tiwi while she isn't looking. Kain is pricked by thorns while picking berries. Serial discovers a cave. Sakuya receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Moya knowingly eats toxic berries. 11 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Genjutsu of Lotus Land's story. Rikuko of Phantasmagoria of Dim Dream. Unzen of Undefined Fantastic Object. Nu of Undefined Fantastic Object. Hekisha of Legacy of Lunata Kingdom. Flounder of Embodiment of Scarlet Devil. Eternity of Hidden Star in 4 Seasons. Emilia of Embodiment of Scarlet Devil. Shinno of Double Dealing Character. Virgo of Imperishable Night. Night of Tsusu and Kuga. Night 12, Satano receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Genji tends to his wounds. Shizuka, Aku, Mystia, and Kokoro tell each other ghost stories to lighten the mood. Sakuya loses sight of where she is. Mealing starts a fire. Senjaku tends to Serial's wounds. Lily thinks about winning. Nazrin and Kurumi talk about the tributes still alive. Merlin looks at the night sky. Rankoto cooks her food before putting her fire out. Takane passes out from exhaustion. Mai attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Megumi receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Okaina, Binbin, and Medicine discuss the games and what might happen in the morning. Shin goes to sleep. Jaimata loses sight of where she is. Kotaka, Ringo, Tui, Kana, and Kain sleep in shifts. Star attempts to climb a tree, but falls on Mima, killing them both. Uko attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Torihime loses sight of where she is. Sunny, Maribel, Yojin Mugen, and Namino sleep in shifts. Riko receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Iki, Lyrica, and Louise get into a fight. Louise triumphantly kills them both. Day 13, Kurumi stalks Uko. Rakoto and Serial work together for the day. Youjin Megan travels to higher ground. Nazreen attacks Kokoro, but she manages to escape. Okaina, Toyohan, Rika, and Shun form a suicide pact, killing themselves. Nomino camouflages herself in the bushes. Bin kills Mistia while she is resting. Sakuya sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Sunny and Takine work together for the day. Sadano receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Chimina, Merlin, Lily, and Shizua hunt for other tributes. Mike constructs a shack. Mealing receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Rinko hunts for other tributes. Medicine, Kana, and Yui get into a fight. Touhou triumphantly kills them both. Louise receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Magyumu tends to Maribel's wounds. Senjaku tries to spearfish with trident. Genji discovers a river. Aki chases Ki. Kotaka injures herself. 11 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Star of Fairy Wars. Mima of highly responsive to prayers. Iki of Phantasmagoria of Flower View. Lyrico Perfect Cherry Blossom. Okaina of Hidden Star in 4 Seasons. Toyoheim of Ubaga Suzzle. Rika of Story of Eastern Wonderland. Shin of Antinomy of Common Flowers. Mistia of Imperishable Night. Medicine of Phantasmagoria of Flower View. Kana of Phantasmagoria of Dim Dream. Night 13. Kurumi receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Serial receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Sunny decapitates Dewey with a sword. Kotaka cries herself to sleep. Takine thinks about home. Maribel tries to sing herself to sleep. Aki fends Mai, Genji, and Youjin Megan away from her fire. Merlin, Senjaku, Kokoro, and Shizua sleep in shifts. Sakuya receives an explosive from an unknown sponsor. Rinko attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful. Chimera screams for help. Louise convinces Binbin to snuggle with her. Lily looks at the night sky. Rakoto stays awake all night. Satano attempts to climb a tree, but falls on Magyumu, killing them both. Nomino, Ki, Nazrin, and Uko sleep in shifts. Mealing tends to her wounds. Day 14. Mealing overhears Sunny and Iki talking in the distance. Kokoro attacks Rakoto, but she manages to escape. Kotaka receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Senjaku searches for a water source. Kurumi receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Chimera diverts Uko's attention and runs away. Nazrin chases Shizua. Bin runs away from Genji. Sakuya defeats Lily in a fight, but spares her life. Takine dies trying to escape the arena. Maribel sets Serial on fire with a Molotov. Rinko sees smoke rising in the distance, but decides not to investigate. Nomino strangles Ki after engaging in a fist fight. Louise chases Mai. Youjin Megan attacks Merlin, but she manages to escape. 6 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Touhou of Imperishable Night. Sadano of Hidden Star in 4 Seasons. Magyumu of Unconnected Marketeers. Takine of Unconnected Marketeers. Serial of Highly Responsive to Prayers. Ki of Imperishable Night. We will now commence another intermission to see the status of our teams. Highly Responsive to Prayers remains with 2 people. Senjaku remains with 4 kills. Not bad. Story of Eastern Wonderland remains with Genji who has 4 kills. Good job, Turtle. Rakoto remains within Phantasmagoria of Dim Dream. Hang in there, Robot Girl. 1 remains in Lotus Land Story known as Kurumi who has gotten 1 kill. Mystic Square remains with Louise at 3 kills. Embodiment of Scarfla Devil remains with Hong Mealing still at 6 kills and Sakuya Aoi with 2 kills. Only 3 remain in Perfect Cherry Blossom with Lily White and Merlin Prism River, both with 1 kill, as well as Uko Seiji Uji with 2 kills. Imperishable Night is lost, but not forgotten. Touhou has triumphed over 10 people, one of which being her comrade Triasinidanj Nineveh. Scary Rabbit Mountain of Faith remains with Shizuo Aki who has 2 kills. Undefined Fantastic Object remains with Nazrin. Fairy Wars remains with Sunny Milk who has 2 kills. Hopeless Masquerade is hanging on with Hatano Kokoro who has 2 kills. Double Dealing Character remains with Bin Sukamura has 1 kill. We know who that is, right? Legacy of Lunatic Kingdom is fallen. Antimony of Common Flowers is fallen. Hidden Star in 4 Seasons remains with Nomino Sakata who has 3 kills and Mai Tyrita. Wily Beast and Weakest Creature remains with Kutakini Winari with 4 kills. Unfortunately, unconnected marketeers has been massacred, with the only remaining member being Chimera Tenkyu, who has 1 kill. Hang in there. Ghostly Field Club remains strong, with Ranko Uzami having 3 kills and Maribel Hearn with 5 kills. Well done girls, you're doing great. Kurendu has fallen. Kumanshiki remains with Haiden Noiki. What is she even doing? Bogatsuzu has fallen, Chirakadan has fallen, Sunakyuk has fallen, and finally the PC98 protagonists have also fallen. With that, let's see how this ends. Night 14, Merlin, Kokoro, and Kotaka discuss the games and what might happen in the morning. Rukoda receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Louise starts a fire. Binbin quietly hums. Kurumi and Drinko talk about the tributes still alive. Maya's unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. Mealing severely slices Nazrin with a sword. Maribel and Sunny tell stories about themselves to each other. Sakuya spears Chimera in the abdomen. Yui Uko sees a fire, but stays hidden. Yojin Megan goes to sleep. Shinjaku convinces Jinji to snuggle with her. Namina questions her sanity. Oka and Shizua sleep in shifts. Lily loses sight of where she is. Day 15, Kotaka collects fruit from the tree. Sunny camouflages herself in the bushes. Kurumi accidentally detonates a landmine while trying to Arnett, Rinko, Rankoto, Jinji, and Mealing radios in Megan's camp while she is hunting. Yui Uko injures herself. Lily questions her sanity. Kokoro receives medical supplies from an unknown sponsor. Sakuya and Shizua work together for the day. Maribel and Iki hunt for other tributes. Merlin injures herself. Louise, Shinjaku, Namino, and Mai hunt for other tributes. Binbin bleeds out due to untreated injuries. 4 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Nazrin of undefined fantastic object. Diamond of unconnected marketeers. Kurumi of Lotus Land story. Binbin of double dealing character. Night 15, Jinji, Sunny, Shizua, and Kokoro form a suicide pact, killing themselves. Why though? Mai goes to sleep. Louise lets Kotaka into her shelter. Sakuya and Merlin hold hands. Maribel receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Mealing and Drinko hold hands. Yojin Megan overpowers Lily, killing her. Rankoto screams for help. Namino sees a fire, but stays hidden. Aki begs for Yui Uko to kill her. She refuses, keeping Aki alive. Shinjaku is unable to start a fire and sleeps without warmth. The feast. The cornucopia is replenished with food, supplies, weapons, and memoirs from the tributes' families. Louise accidentally steps on a landmine. Yui Uko stuffs a bundle of dry clothing into a backpack before sprinting away. Namino decides not to go to the feast. Merlin decides not to go to the feast. Mai decides not to go to the feast. Sakuya decides not to go to the feast. Mealing decides not to go to the feast. Oku decides not to go to the feast. Rinko decides not to go to the feast. Maribel decides not to go to the feast. Kotaka stabs Shinjaku while her back is turned. Yojin Megan decides not to go to the feast. Rankoto decides not to go to the feast. Day 16, Mai tends to Mealing's wounds. Yui Uko thinks about home. Sakuya overhears Maribel and Kotaka talking in the distance. Merlin constructs a shack. Namino attacks Yojin Megan, but Rankoto protects her, killing Namino. Rinko dies from hypothermia. Aki receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. 9 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Jinji of Story of Eastern Wonderland. So Long Turtle. Sunny of Fairy Wars. Shizua of Mountain of Faith. Kokoro of Hopeless Masquerade. Lily of Perfect Cherry Blossom. Louise of Mystic Square. Shinjaku of Highly Responsive to Prayers. Namino of Hidden Star in 4 Seasons. Rinko of Ghostly Field Club. Night 16. Mealing quietly hums. Kotaka begs Furky to kill her. She refuses, keeping Kotaka alive. Merlin receives fresh food from an unknown sponsor. Rukoto is awoken by nightmares. Mai thinks about winning. Maribel receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor. Yui Uko and Sakuya huddle for warmth. Yojin Megan cannot handle the circumstances and commits suicide. Day 17, Sakuya tends to Rukoto's wounds. Mealing camouflages herself in the bushes. Kotaka receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Mai sprains her ankle while running away from Wiki. Merlin receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Maribel chases Yui Uko. 1 cannon shot can be heard in the distance. Yojin Megan of Highly Responsive to Prayers. Night 17, Kotaka attacks Sakuya, but Aki protects her, killing Kotaka. Rukoto begs for Maribel to kill her. She refuses, keeping Rukoto alive. Mai fends Mealing, Merlin, and Yui Uko away from her fire. Day 18, Maribel and Sakuya hunt for other tributes. shots. Mealing and Nikki track down and kill Merlin. Mike kills Ryukoto with a hatchet. Yui Uko unknowingly eats toxic berries. 4 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Kotaka wily beast and weakest creature. Merlin of perfect cherry blossom. Ryukoto of phantasmagoria of dim dream. Yui Uko of perfect cherry blossom. Night 18, Sakuya tracks down and kills Iki. Mai destroys Mirabelle's supplies while she is asleep. Mealing accidentally steps on a landmine. Day 19, Sakuya kills Mirabelle while she is resting. Mai searches for a water source. 3 cannon shots can be heard in the distance. Akio to Ukuman Shiki. Mealing of embodiment of Scarlet Devil. Mirabelle of Ghostly Field Club. The finalists are in Sakuya Aizaoi, the maid of the Scarlet Devil Mansion, with 6 kills. And my Tyrita, Okina's background dancer with 1 kill. Place your bets on who will win in 3, 2, 1. Night 19, Sakuya stabs Mai with a tree branch. The winner is Sakuya from embodiment of Scarlet Devil. Now for some final mentions. Our top finalists were of course, Sakuya Aizaoi with 7 kills, Mai Tyrita with 1 kill, Mirabelle Hearn with 5 kills, Hong Yilling with 8 kills and Hidenoku with 1 kill. The first 5 to fall were Reiko Horikawa, Luna Prison River, Sani Kachaya, Kiran Kunway and Luna Child. And finally, the top 3 killers were Tui Inaba who killed Reason Udanjin Inaba, Yumko, Fujiwara no Moku, Misuma Uruzuma Sakuri, Sanio Kamikasa, Rikuko Sakura, Unz, Nuju, Medicine Melancholy, and Kena Anabro. Hong Mealing who killed Irene Yagakuro, C.E. Gikuku, Mamizufu Tsuiwa, Parsi Mizuashi, Rinosik Morichika, Hina Kajiyama, Nazrin, and Merlin Prison River, and Sakuya Aizaoi who killed Yumimi Okazaki, Mizuchi Midaguchi, Taimata Tenkiyu, Kotaka Niwatari, Hidenoku, Mirabelle Hearn, and my Tyrita. Thank you for witnessing this carnage. If this video somehow explodes larger than I expected and multiple people want to see it played out again, let me know and Little Defoe will consider it. This is Little Defoe's 500 subscriber special. Take care everyone, have a great day.